ESPN FC presents the Gab and Juls show. Today, Mark Ogden joins the guys to preview the return of the Premier League. And now, here's Gab and Juls.
We are very excited to be with you. Glad that you could join us. Welcome back, Jules. Enough of you, because you can go to Jules' social media to follow his adventures on holiday. Let's get right into it because we've got a lot to get through. La Liga is starting up this weekend. The Premier League is starting up this weekend. We're going to have quick hits as well. Man, it feels like only yesterday that they were still playing, but hey,
only yesterday.
This is the world in which we live. And should we get Mark Ogden on to help us sort out what to expect in the Premier League?
Yes, let's have him on.
And through the magic of television, there he is. Augie, welcome.
Hi, guys.
Now, I don't want to play the stereotype, but you said that there's something that's making you grumpy and irritable and northern this morning. Do you want to get this out of the way?
Yeah, listen, I'm still 12 hours on. I'm still so angry that England have announced a friendly in November with New Zealand. You know, it's like they're 122nd in the world. Gareth Southgate said less than 2 weeks ago that English football needs to be collaborative to ensure that players don't get to the Euros burnt out. And they're playing New Zealand behind closed doors in November at Wembley. What is the point of that? There'll be so many withdrawals in that game. They've also got to play Belgium and Iceland in that international break. 3 games in November when players
It doesn't really make sense. He's right. It doesn't really make sense.
Yeah, but also we gave him 30 seconds to talk about an irrelevant match, which he says is irrelevant, in late November while we're supposed to be previewing the Premier League, which I think one or two more people. You've said your piece, Augie. I agree with you. We all agree.
Move on now. You can move on.
We can move on. Obvious question to start.
I can't move on.
Is it a two-horse race, Jules?
It is a two-horse race between Liverpool and Manchester City again for the third season in a row. But you would expect Chelsea to get closer, and I think the big objective for Chelsea has to be closing that gap a little bit as much as they can. I still think it's too early for them to be proper title contenders, but you certainly expect them to be maybe far closer than what they were last year to Liverpool, of course, and to City, but you know, in a, let's say, between 5 and 10 points, I think that's where I expect them to finish at the end of the season. Third, 5 or 10 points behind whoever wins it between City and Liverpool, City and Liverpool.
Oh yeah, I assume you're on board with that, so I'm not going to ask you to repeat everything that Jules just said, but this is what I want to know. Was the gap between City and Liverpool last season, is it as big as the point spread suggests, or were they actually much closer? And does that mean that City, who of course thus far, and you know the transfer window is still open, but have added Nathan Ake and Ferran Torres, that they actually start on an equal footing with Liverpool?
Yeah, look, I don't think that the gap was as big as the points suggest it was. It was a freak season for Liverpool last year, certainly until the shutdown in March. They were winning games ridiculously consistently until the Watford game. But I think they started the season much closer. I think City have probably gone ahead of Liverpool in the sense that Liverpool haven't strengthened. And I got the impression with Liverpool towards the end of last season that there were 1 or 2 games where you felt that they needed a bit of an injection of new blood, a bit of a change, just somebody to kind of bring a different emphasis to them. They haven't done that yet. They've brought in a left back who's basically covered for Andy Robertson. So I think City move ahead of them a little bit. Obviously, I think City will miss Leroy Sané, but he didn't play last season, so you know that's not a massive loss. But I do disagree with Jules slightly. I think Chelsea can be closer than he thinks. I think it can be 3-horse race. I just think that Chelsea have made so many attacking signings that they will blow most teams away, and if they can get results against the big teams, then Chelsea can actually compete.
Well, okay, on that point, let's transition to Chelsea here, because what gets me is I think chemistry does matter. Especially, it's great to be attacking, but unless your attacks are the way you play, unless you're tactically coordinated, you're going to give up chances at the other end. And we saw that a little bit last season. So it takes time to build chemistry and to build mechanisms. And when I look at this, and Chelsea are obviously a much more talented squad, they have an enormous squad. Again, the window's still open. I think 1 or 2 guys might leave. But I asked myself, if we had to guess now what his starting 11 is going to look like, I genuinely think that apart from Ben Chilwell and maybe N'Golo Kante, if he stays, I don't know anybody else who's guaranteed a starting spot in this team. And what I mean, obviously we can debate this, but what I'm driving at is he's going to have to manage a very big squad with a lot of players who are used to playing time. It really is a double-edged sword, isn't it, Jules?
But you mean in terms of rotation? So, for example, if they play against a certain opposition, then he could change and...
Well, he's going to do 1 or 2 things, right? We see this all the time when you have big squads. Either you end up rotating continuously, which has pros and cons. Players stay fresh, you're unpredictable, blah, blah, blah. Or you stick to a core of 15, 16 players, and then you deal with players who are generally well paid, highly regarded, and who aren't happy. Then you have to manage them and say, oh, look, hey, it's a League Cup game against Rochdale. Here's your chance, Ross. It's a skill. Some managers can do it. This is a very young manager. I think it's a test for him.
Yeah, and I agree with you. However, I cannot see how Timo Werner is not guaranteed to start in that team, and same with Kai Havertz. Why would you leave them on the bench? I mean, you might be at the beginning to give them a bit of time to settling in and to adapt, maybe to have a look and to understand how things work and etc. But they're your two best players, right? So unless you put Giroud when you play against a team that will sit really deep and play with a very low block, and you want a lot of crosses, and he's obviously much better than Timo Werner in the air, and then you play. But other than that, Werner is your number 9 starter.
All right.
You would pick Giroud or Abraham or Batshuayi ahead of Timo Werner.
I would pick Batshuayi. I think Batshuayi is moving on.
So you would pick Abraham or Giroud ahead of Timo Werner.
I think there's situations when maybe you put Timo Werner on the left. Depending on how quickly they pick up what you want to do. Timo Werner's been there. He's been training with the team. Kai Havertz, for example, just arrived. That's a different one. Kai Havertz also much more difficult, not really an orthodox player.
Yeah. I think that highlights what you're saying. It just highlights how much the pressure on Lampard is.
Right.
It's going to be huge pressure.
Enough Chelsea. We need to talk about the biggest team in the world, the most famous team in the world. United finished 4th last season. What's a realistic objective this year? Like, does he have to finish 3rd to show forward progress? Can he finish 3rd?
Well, if he finishes 3rd, he's not moved forward because he finished 3rd last season, so it's basically par, isn't it?
3rd, 4th, come on, man.
Listen, I think the best that United can hope for this year, realistically, is 4th. I don't think they've made the investment in the squad to elevate them ahead of Chelsea, who've done a proper job this summer. So I think 4th is the best they can hope for. Obviously, United will say, well, we're Man United, we should challenge for the title. They're not going to challenge for the title. It's a tough season for Solskjaer because they haven't made the investment required. We saw the Europa League game against Sevilla 86 minutes before he made a change because he didn't have the squad. He still doesn't have the squad. He signed Donny van der Beek, who's a good addition, but that's, in a way, he's kind of strengthened an area where they were already okay. They haven't added to the back 4 yet, and the back 4 is in desperate need.
Well, that's why.
There's no way.
And then when they're still up, which is why I hate doing previews at this point, but we contractually have to. Let's wrap this up with a very quick answer for television. Arsenal or Chelsea? Arsenal or Spurs? Who's finishing higher? Jules?
Arsenal.
Augie?
I think Arsenal too.
All right, I think it's all going to change. Let's revisit this when the transfer window closes.
Welcome back to ESPN FC presents the Gab and Juls show. With La Liga set to return this weekend as well, here's Gab and Juls.
All right, Jules, La Liga also kicking off this weekend, albeit without Real Madrid and Barcelona because of the whole thing. They played late in the Champions League, whatever. Again, I don't think we need to spend much time on this because the transfer window is still open. A lot of things are up in the air at a number of clubs. Atletico haven't really done much. Barcelona, we know about the dumpster fire there. But Real Madrid, team really stable, again.
Yeah, stability, which I don't think is a bad thing. Maybe had they had money available for it, they would have gone maybe for a couple of players in midfield, especially I think this is probably where you need to find someone who then will replace Luka Modric up front. You need someone maybe who will replace Karim Benzema because clearly Jovic, I don't think he's the right guy. So in an ideal world, maybe they would have spent, but I think right now Zidane would be very happy to have that status quo and keeping that bunch of players who've done so well for him, especially after the restart, to go and win the league and the way they did. Okay, it was disappointing in the Champions League, but I think they will go again and could be interesting.
I think one of the big things this season is also going to be whether guys like Isco and Asensio, who missed most of last year, but we know are phenomenal footballers, if those guys stay fit, then, if you have a fit Isco playing, then replacing Modric, not so much of an issue.
Right,
between Valverde, Casemiro, Kroos, you have your options there. They need, I think, Eder to continue to show that he can be, the first alternative to the two center backs.
Yeah.
But otherwise, for me, they have to be favourites at this stage.
With Hazard has to be a different season. He has to be injury-free.
It would certainly help, but I'll tell you what, I don't think it's that important.
I disagree with you.
I don't think it's that important because they have alternatives. I don't think Hazard has to be central to the plan. I mean, obviously, given what they pay for him, given what they are paying him in wages, sure. But if he doesn't have a big season or if he gets injured again, you still have Rodrigo, you have Vinicius, you have Isco, you have Asensio. You've got a range of options. Barcelona, I don't know what we can say. We've covered Messi's a death. Luis Suarez up in the air. We'll get to him in quick hits.
Yeah.
I think this is one where we just have to sit back and wait. But I wanted to ask you about Ansu Fati because obviously, just a kid. Do you chuck him out there? Do you make him at least at the start of the season? Project him as a starter?
I think you need to go with the momentum that he's had and what he did with the national team. And really now, if you don't start him, so they're not playing this weekend, so he has a bit more time to know exactly what Koeman wants him to do. And then he has to start.
So who's your centre forward then? Griezmann or Braithwaite?
I mean, that's a tough one. Listen,
is he happy to play centre forward for the good of the team? Because if we assume Suarez leaves, is he happy to play centre forward? Because I know Barcelona linked with Depay, but I'm not sure they're going to bring another striker. Is Griezmann happy? You know the guy's his mentality.
Yeah, I think he would be happy.
Can he make that adjustment?
I think anything but playing white. That will go with him. And then I think he will work. He will work with his relationship with Messi. He will work with his understanding with everybody else, with Fati and with Ousmane Dembele, for example, who I think will come back. And I think Koeman likes what he sees with Dembele. But it would be difficult, I think, for Koeman to find the right formula. Even without Memphis Depay, even if Suarez stays, I don't think it'd be easy.
All right, La Liga fans, we're not giving you short shrift, but the reality is the window is still open, and we expect a lot of late. We'll be back on this.
Welcome back to ESPN FC presents the Gab and Juls show. Now with some of the biggest stories from the world of football, it's time for quick hits. Over to Gab and Juls in London.
All right, enough previews. I'm all previewed out, Jules. How about some quick hits?
Let's go, Gab.
Cristiano bags 2 goals as Portugal win away to Sweden in the Nations League. He now has 101 international goals, which puts him 8 behind Ali Dai in second place among the men. He's also 85 behind Christine Sinclair, if you expand it to men and women. Jules, it's a dead certainty he breaks the men's record. But is he going to break the overall record?
So the men's record, no doubt. I mean, it's pretty incredible when you look at it. And if you look at the numbers that he scored, 49 goals in 47 caps after the age of 30, which is really remarkable. I know you wrote that long piece not long ago about how his game has evolved, but still, it's incredible. He's 35. He will beat Ali Dai, and I don't think that anyone ever will go and get Cristiano's record, whatever number he finishes with. But I think Christine Sinclair, the Canada legend, I think it's a little bit too far for him.
Plus, I don't think she's retired yet.
No, I think she's still playing, for sure. So she will go on and score.
Phenomenal story, Christine Sinclair.
England drew 0-0 with Denmark in the Nations League in a game so dire, Gab, that your old colleague at the Times and our old friend Henry Winter said it was so bad they should not even have been on television, let alone behind closed doors. What was the problem for Southgate there?
So he came out and he said, well, that he was more conservative in his team selection, and he said that it was
to play Denmark.
Play Denmark,
yeah,
and the reason
you have to be.
Well, no, he said you had to be, because you had the Greenwood Foden story when they were sent home for sneaking women into their hotel, and so now losing this, it would have caused a bad reaction in the media and so on. So you couldn't afford any screw up here. It was bad. I mean, he tried the back three, and the kind of back three with Eric Dyer in there, it's not going to work. He had a lot of absentees. But, the front three is the real front three. Sancho, Kane, Sterling. Although, I think these guys look around and they look who's behind them and they say, meh,
I just think that's the worst excuse that he came up with to justify his incompetence. That was the worst lineup he could have come up with, and yet he did. I don't understand the Southgate hype. I don't get it. For me, he's not good enough. And to have Rice and Phillips, 2 similar players in there with no creativity, no movement. They were on the same line all the time, next to each other. It was ridiculous. Yeah. I was fuming.
Not a game in which to experiment. Eden Hazard traveled with Belgium to play against Iceland and Denmark, but didn't get on the pitch at all, which rather annoyed Real Madrid. Do they have a point?
Yeah, 0 minute, nothing, just training, nothing at all. It was strange. And I think...
Well, why didn't he stay and train with...
I don't know, and especially with Thibaut Courtois going back after he had I don't know if it was a
real injury pertaining, whatever it was.
But for Hazard to stay the whole 10 days with the national team, not even playing, when he's had an injury before, his pre-season at the same time.
It's a weird one.
I think Real Madrid are allowed to be
It's
cross.
a weird one.
Italy look impressive when they beat Holland on Monday night, Gab. However, the bad news of the night was that Nicolo Zaniolo got another really bad injury.
Yeah, it's his second ACL injury in the last 8 months. This kid, hugely unlucky. It was on the other knee, which I suppose is a good thing rather than the same knee re-injuring.
Yes.
But it's definitely a huge blow. And look, players have come back and have come back better and stronger. And I think it's when when I tweeted out like, oh look, but hopefully he comes back strong. People says, oh yeah, who's come back stronger? Oh wait. And so I did a little bit of research, and I'll tell you who's come back stronger. Ale Del Piero came back stronger. Xavi came back stronger. Alan freaking Shearer came back stronger. Roberto Baggio, heard of him? He came back stronger.
Yeah.
So yeah, it does happen. Chelsea have given Christian Pulisic the number 10 shirt. Jules, is this a big deal?
I love it. I think number 10 is still very special, and I think I want... Don't look at me like this. As a romantic, I want to believe that you give the number 10 to your best player, pretty much. I know it's not always like this, but I think if you're Christian Pulisic right now and you have the number 10, you feel epic. You feel like, yeah, let's go, bring it on. I love it. Good on them and good on him. Liverpool haven't bought a starting quality player. I mean, you're a bit harsh there, but since Fabinho, and I listened 2 years ago, this is your words.
It's not harsh.
I know, but okay.
Who have they bought in the last 2 years?
Club says it's because they're a different club. They're not owned by an oligarch or by a state, and this and that. Is it being fair, or is he just a bit whining because he hasn't got really the recruitment that he wanted?
Facts, and we touched upon this on Monday. If you know the blogger Swiss Ramble, he has an excellent thread explaining why Liverpool are in this situation, and they're in this situation because obviously they've been hit by the pandemic. People might say, well, how is it possible? They make all this profit. That's accounting profit. That's not cash flow.
Yeah.
Liverpool have very low working capital, and part of the reason they have low working capital is they don't have an Abramovich or a Mansour who just pumps cash into the club. And
although you can't really do that anymore. I mean, this is like...
No, but you can do it on a cash basis.
Yeah,
this is a cash issue. It's not an FFP issue. It's purely a cash issue. And also FSG, the owners, haven't been willing to take on more debt. Basically, they're running the club like you would run a business, which is funny because they're businessmen. Your pal Gareth Bale is in the news again, with the Telegraph suggesting Real Madrid are happy to pay half his wages if somebody takes him on loan. Other reports say they'll let him go for $25 million. Meanwhile, surprise, surprise, he returned from international duty with a knock that kept him out of training. Not much to say.
You don't believe him that he's injured?
Yeah.
I believe him. Listen, he came out with words and said, I want to go. It's Real Madrid who didn't want me to go before. They blocked my move last summer to China. They did this, they did that. I think it's not difficult, is it, for everybody to agree? Either you just free him and he can go wherever he wants if he wants to, or you try to sell him. But I don't have the feeling that Real Madrid are really pushing to sell him either. They don't really do everything they can to do so. Otherwise, he would have gone, no?
No, because
he says he wants to play, he wants to leave, he wants to play. Why is he not leaving?
Take a pay cut. Nobody can afford you.
But surely he knows that.
Real Madrid.
Surely he knows that. So when he says, I want to leave...
So maybe he doesn't want to play. I notice I know you're part Welsh, but at this stage, man, we're going to get to the point where he's just going to wait and run out his contract and then go somewhere free.
No, he needs to play. Another Real Madrid player, by the way, James Rodriguez moved to Everton is official. However, there's a little different coverage in the price. Some people say it's 25 million, others says it's free with a selling on close. What do you believe?
Well, 25, much as I love Carlo, 25 million for a player on his wages, who only had 1 year left on his contract.
And he's 29.
And he's 29 years old, seems like an enormous amount of money, frankly. So I genuinely don't know, but I'm going to make my appeal to everybody out there. Why can't we have transparency? It all comes out in the wash. We had this with Havertz, right?
Yeah.
We had different people that was like 30 million apart, the price Chelsea paid for him. Why can't we have transparency? Football people, what are you hiding?
Well, we have it with Porto. We'll come about in a bit, and maybe that's what people want to avoid.
Not the best week for Mason Greenwood. First, he and Phil Foden get sent home from the England team after they break quarantine rules and invite two ladies back to their hotel, who, of course, film everything on Snapchat and then put on social because, hey, that's how you roll. Then it emerges that he's been renting out an Airbnb in Manchester and hosting raucous house parties. Jules, is this going to affect him on the pitch?
I don't know. I hope not. I really thought he was a mature kid. The way he came back after the restart, and he looked sharper, he looked fitter, he looked even stronger. I thought, okay, yeah, this kid works hard, he does well, and then he goes and does stupid things like this. I don't know who is advising him, who is around him. How can you let an 18-year-old rent out Airbnb houses to host parties during the confinement when you know the rules? It's beyond me. And then the girls in Iceland, I guess everybody makes mistakes. He's still very young. Let's hope he learns from it. But I really hope that that's not going to derail him for.
Yeah, he's got to compartmentalize it so it doesn't affect him on the pitch.
Yeah, let's hope so. But I'm just not convinced. Luis Suarez took to social media, Gab, to slam what he called fake news. What was he talking about?
Beats the hell out of me. I mean, the picture showed him training with Barcelona, so maybe the fake news is that he's left Barcelona.
To go to Juventus, but surely there was some truth in that, right?
I think we know for a fact that they've been talking to Juventus, and there was a whole business with him getting an Italian passport because the rules in La Liga are different than in Italy. Obviously, not an EU player. I'm assuming he's referring to that. I don't know. Wouldn't it be a great story if this actually part of the whole power play, which nobody said was a power play? In the end, Messi says, you know what? Let's keep Luis another year. Seriously, why not? Let's keep my mate.
That can't happen. I mean, that cannot happen.
Jules, you're more fashion conscious than I am, so I know you're dying to talk about Manchester United's third kit.
The worst kit ever, one of the worst kits ever, the zebra kit, as we can call it already now. I don't know who came up with it. I don't know who managed to convince United it was a good idea. But your theory is that no one cares about third kid.
No, my theory is I don't care. Unless you're a child under the age of 12.
It's to make money. If the kid is ugly, no one is going to buy it. What's the point? What's the point?
Whatever. But a third kit, come on.
But still, people buy third kits. They buy first, second, third kit. If it's ugly, no one's going to buy it. What's the point then?
Yeah, there's a word for them. They're called full kit, something that rhymes with bankers. That's what it's called.
Still, people buy it. If you're not going to make money out of it, what's the point? I thought it was a shocking decision by United, who have been so good marketing-wise for so long. And
the fact that we've spent the last 45 seconds talking about their kit means that they get more PR. So maybe in the end they're smarter than you.
Maybe. Let's see. I will go to Old Trafford when fans are back, and then see. Well, talking about fans, it's a good segue. It looks like fans could be back. Well, at least the idea was that they could be back in October the 1st. But Gab, it looks very unlikely, right, with the rises again in positive cases.
Yeah, this is news in the last 24 hours, and there's been a spike in certain areas in England, and the pilot scheme where they were going to send a certain percentage of fans back in England, that now seems to be uncertain or on hold. We may have to wait a while longer. At the risk of sounding like corny Captain Obvious, this is the new normal. This is what you have to deal with. It's going to be harder to plan things longer term, and but the good news is I think they're still going to try to do things when the pandemic allows it. Out of their hands, out of their control. Jules, it's fantastic to have you back.